So here we are at our Fénix community wet mill, and I want to show you some features. So here are the tanks for receiving the cherries. From up here though, the most important thing to notice is how far we drop down before the end. So it's quite a steep slope. The other thing is this first piece of roof is leading the water away from us, but the second roof is actually sloped back towards us so that all of the water is collected down here in this tank. So all of the roof's rainwater is collected before we start the floating process. Let's go down to the next level. Okay, so once the cherry comes into the floating channel, this pipe system over the top is where the water will agitate and push the cherries around because it doesn't have much of a slope. It's pretty flat. So the cherries go in here, they do one turn, and by the time they get to the end, they should have separated into floaters and sinkers. Over here on this side, you have an overflow that keeps the level of the water in the system, and eventually all the water that flows out is recirculated up and going through again and again. So we're not using fresh water, it's just recycling. Let's have a look at how it ends, which is critical. Okay, so here is the part at the end of the channel when the cherries that are floating will come along and hit this wall and then pass over the top of this part of the channel that's a little bit lower. It's only this much lower than the sides. That's why it's important to maintain the height of the water in the channel at this height. Anywhere between here and here will work. That's why we have the overflow at the end of the channel when it turns to maintain the height here. So this is where the floating cherries will flow over, and then all the water will be passed through this grill and the cherries will continue on. Meanwhile, the sinking cherries will pass underneath, and there's a little gate here so we can adjust. We can close a door so that you can block the cherries and let them build up before letting a few through or a lot through by opening this door. And those floating those sinkers will continue along here, down the pipe, and across something very similar, which we can have a look at now. This is the beginning of the channel. Here's where the cherries are coming from the hopper, going into the channel. Here's where the water is blasting them along. And here you can see, this feeds all the agitators, all the jets that continue to push the cherries around the corner. As you can see now, the water is coming up almost high enough. We're adding more water to the system, we're charging it. Eventually, when the water starts falling over here, that's when we know it's high enough. That will start to remove the floaters once the water falls here. So once all the stones have been trapped back here, all of the cherries, even though they're not floaters, these are good cherries now, are forced over this grill down into this next hopper. You can see the difference in the size. This is quite a small hopper compared to the first hoppers. All of the water is taken out with this system because it's much larger than the one we use for the floaters. Now there's an Archimedes screw that pulls the coffee to the saranda, which is just a cylinder with holes to separate the cherries that are good into small and large. If they're small, they pass through the cylinder and fall down into a pulper that is calibrated for small cherries. If they're large, they will make it all the way to the end and fall out of the end, and they go to a pulper calibrated for large cherries. And by doing this, we eliminate a lot of broken beans or unpulped beans. We've come down 2 levels. There's the channel up there. Here are where the floaters come out, and they're just getting held in a barrel for now, a blue barrel over here. That's where the floaters go. And the sinkers, they travel along into the back of this, which holds the stones, then across the grate that separates the water. Here is the water going into this big tank, and then getting pumped back up to start the process again. Meanwhile, the cherries come into this hopper, go through the Archimedes screw, and then are separated into 2 sizes. So here's the cylinder, what falls through are the small cherries that go to the first pulper, and what passes without falling through are the bigger cherries. They go here into this hopper and then through the floor to the pulper calibrated for larger cherries.